Hey everybody, welcome to 30 Ways to Happy Days. I'm Alana Yvonne with Truly Great Life, and we are on way number 7. So this way is the character strength of appreciation of beauty and excellence. So what does that really mean? And how does that even resonate with you just hearing it? What pops in your head as to what that even means? So first things first, what is appreciation? So come up with what you think that is, and then I'll just share. I literally just looked it up, in the dictionary, and appreciation is a recognition. Okay, I love this. Appreciation is recognition or seeing the value, the meaning, the beauty, the talent, the importance of another person or another thing, right? Appreciation is where you recognize, you see, for simplicity's sake, we can just say you see the good in that thing, or you see the potential meaning and value of that thing or that person, which phrased that way makes so much sense when you think about why feeling appreciated is such a big thing for most of us in our relationships. We talked earlier about positive relationships. If you haven't listened to way number 1 and way number 2, I highly encourage you to go back and listen to them. But one of the elements of the formula, if you will, for thriving and flourishing and the good life is the quality of our relationships, having positive relationships. And one of those things is appreciation. Right? It's hard to have a good relationship without appreciation. So that's the definition. It's like appreciation is seeing the good, the value, the importance. Okay, so when we talk about this character strength of appreciation of beauty and excellence, well, what does that mean? So there's 3 ways to understand this particular character strength. So the first one is the appreciation of the beauty, which would be like natural beauty, or let's say abstract beauty. So examples of appreciating natural or abstract beauty would be music, nature, obviously, nature, natural, mathematics. I know for some people is not for me, but I can appreciate that is an example of something that can be found beautiful in the way a formula works or a problem is solved and the elegance of that, right? Same with, within science, music, dance, a lot of the art forms, architecture, right? So examples in the natural world and examples in the created, more abstract, and also in what, people have created, appreciating the beauty in that. Okay. Obviously, in culture, there's also a lot of, it's easy to identify, especially when you look at social media, there seems to be a great appreciation of certain standards of beauty, certain expressions of beauty. If you're familiar with fashion trends, especially over decades, years, centuries, you can really see how the appreciation for physical beauty can be another aspect of that. So that would be one way to think about it. And within that way, that kind of leads to this sense of awe or wonder. Awe or wonder. Like, wowzers, right? Just incredible. You see this vista, you're on a hike, or the mountains, or the ocean, whatever it is, right? This awe and wonder. And with that sense of awe or wonder, it's almost like it can be meaningful for many people where you have that sense of outside of yourself. There's a sense of vastness. There's a sense of there's something else here going on, or feeling. It's a very, one way to know when you're having that experience is if you're witnessing, let's say a play or a film or a piece of music or a concert, right? Or you're in a particular region of the world, wherever you are, and you just have goosebumps and you feel an emotional reaction to it. Okay, so that would be the awe and wonder. Now, the second part of appreciation of beauty and excellence is that excellence piece, right? Excellence, skill, talent. And this is where we can appreciate, again, recognize the value, importance, meaning, etc., of the skill, the level of excellence, the talent that is expressed. And that could be, actually architecture could fit here. A lot of, human-made things can also fit in here as well. But for example, with sports, that's a big one, right? Where you can appreciate and feel and exercise that muscle, that strength of appreciating the beauty and excellence in the demonstration, in the game that you witness, and the play that just happened. Sports is really like a big one, I can think, where, especially because most of us are not professional athletes, but we can appreciate the excellence and the skill and the talent that goes into becoming, an athlete at a certain level. Right? Or at any level, right? Let's, bring it down a little. Like if you're a parent and your kid is in a sport and they're learning to, and they, let's say, started at a certain point, and then over the time of their experience in that sport or in that club or in that class or whatever, you can also appreciate beauty and excellence. You can appreciate the excellence, skill, talent part in their progress, even if it's not, let's say, on a level where it's easy to think about with, like, the Olympics, for example, or your favorite professional sports team, something like that, or a musician, right? It's important to acknowledge and to recognize and appreciate, in our children, if you have children or if you work with children, or just in your friends or your family or your, people in your life, that you can recognize and appreciate and express that you see and value and understand that this is important, whatever that skill or gift, well, not gift, but let's say skill, talent, could be a gift, that excellence, usually born over much training or effort, okay? But in any case, that would be an example of the second kind. And when you are expressing and appreciating that appreciation for excellence, okay, that talent, that skill that you're either involved in or witnessing, that leads to admiration, okay? So the first one, where we're talking about appreciation of beauty and excellence, or awe, right? It's an appreciation of a sense of, it leads to awe and wonder. So when you think of the beauty part, right, it leads to a sense of awe. It leads to a sense of wonder, like amazement, right? And that can happen with the appreciation of excellence or talent or skill as well, where you're like, oh my goodness. But it's more about an admiration, admiring that excellence, okay? So there's awe and wonder, and then there's excellence leading to admiration. And the third one, okay, I'm like laughing because it's exciting to talk about, but because when we hear appreciation of beauty and excellence, it's kind of easier, if you will, to think about the physical things, right? Like the things in front of you, or the things you can hear, right? The beautiful landscape, or the piece of work of art or music or theater or sport, or within, like, the sciences. Okay. The third one, when you get to think about, all right, I've been saying that you have all of these character strengths in you, and so this appreciation of beauty and excellence, like, how can I use that muscle, make my day happier, make my day better, right? This third one is an appreciation, a recognition of virtue or moral goodness. Sounds heavy, right? But it's really when you value, or you recognize, you see the good in acts of, let's say, goodness and kindness, in behaving virtuously, in having a moral goodness thing, okay? And this leads to what is called elevation. And elevation is like when you're elevated, you feel higher, you feel more expansive, you feel, if you believe, let's say, in God, like maybe you feel like more aligned spiritually with whatever your higher power is, right? There's an elevation within, let's say, the spirit, okay? So appreciation of beauty and excellence in almost like, you can say an interpersonal, ethical, moral realm. All right. And what's exciting about that one too is that it tends to be related to people wanting to do good or doing good for others as a result of seeing it or witnessing it. Okay? So for example, again, appreciation of beauty and excellence, including appreciating the beauty of like moral goodness, the beauty of seeing a kind act, the appreciation of seeing a kind act, the awe and wonder you have at seeing someone do a kind deed, right? Or be a kind person, or say a kind word, or do the right thing, right? And then that is an example where your example, witnessing that example of goodness expressed, may inspire you to go do an act of goodness. You know, the act of witnessing and recognizing and seeing that act of goodness, okay, can inspire others to do it. So we have that phrase like paying it forward, or RAK, random acts of kindness. That to me, just, for me, that's like a super exciting way to think about how can I use the strength of appreciation of beauty and excellence, because I'll just give myself as an example. And of course, as I'm going through this with all of these, think about what resonates for you. Think about what speaks as true for you. There's, 24 character strengths. Again, I encourage you to go back to the beginning of the series, and this is just one of the 24, and these are all like muscles, okay? Every human being in every culture and corner of the world has all 24. The only question is, are you even aware of them? And are you using them? And also, some you use more than others, more easily. They give you more energy. They feel effortless. They feel like the essence of who you are. Those are top ones, the ones that you can use more easily, that give you energy, that you feel are like critical parts of who you are. So for me, appreciation of beauty and excellence, I've usually like thought about it with those first two aspects that I explained, where it's like on the beauty part with nature and with other abstract forms, and then, the excellence of skill. And this is like a middle character strength for me. But I think that I get really excited thinking about that third aspect as well. And I hadn't, in my day-to-day, I hadn't thought about it as much. I kind of thought about it more in terms of another character strength that we will get to, which is spirituality. But now that, in preparing for today, like, I think about it a little differently. So this is just exciting, because what I'm introducing you to, if you aren't already familiar with it, there are so many ways to go with this. This is just an introduction. But it's important to know, like, so some people, for example, have a very high level of, or a top strength for them is appreciation of beauty and excellence. And I think I gave this example in an earlier recording. But I have one child for whom this is like a top 5, absolutely. And it's a top 5 in the way of like the aesthetic and the and that is definitely not a top 5 for me. That is definitely not, it's just not a top strength that resonates with me. But through this lens of empathy, again, these character strengths are like a language to understand other people, and a lens of empathy for realizing that there's no wrongs here, okay? There are no wrongs, just differences. So when I understood that, my child valued, I learned to recognize for her, appreciate, see the importance, see the meaning in, for example, having her room organized in a certain way, or having a certain color scheme for, let's say, her bedding, and the things that that's something that is less important for me. And it enabled me to be more open and expansive in my parenting for her, just as an example. And that is like super exciting to think about how this can help you have a happier day, in the sense of who in your life, and maybe it's you, really has this character strength of appreciation of beauty and excellence, whether it's in that physical aesthetic sense that I just mentioned, or let's say nature, right? Being out in nature, living among, certain access to certain natural things. Like some people need to live by the ocean. Some people need to live by the mountains. Some people want to have like big, whatever it is, right? So there's the natural part. So these are just some examples within, right? So it's just one character strength: awe, wonder, appreciation of the beauty and the excellence in all these different domains. But there's so much there for your relationships when you think of other people and how this may be important for them, how it may be for you, how it can be expressed in other ways. So, because this is the thing. I think that some of us can get really judgy, right? If we see people who don't value, let's say, the same art or the same, fashions or the same music. Like we humans we can be judgy people, right? We can be very dismissive, for example, when it comes to the arts of certain kinds of art, certain kinds of artists, certain kinds of music, certain kinds of architecture. It's like, as opposed to appreciating, recognizing, seeing the good in that. And this is important for this, this strength of appreciation of wonder, awe, beauty, excellence, regardless of where, what's interesting to you or specifically what you find beautiful, is it like thrives in this, it thrives with curiosity. It thrives with questioning. It thrives with being open and interested in seeing like what's out there. So, for example, if you believe that like this kind of art is the only art that is worth anything and everything else is like judgy, like you can bring, a question to that, an inquisitiveness to that, a curiosity there of like, why does this person find that beautiful? Why does that person find or appreciate this particular singer, film, type of art, sport? Why do they seem so, excited and awestruck when they solve this really complicated engineering problem, right? And so, as someone who's not an engineering student, this is I wish I had this when I was back in school, decades ago. Like, this is a way to, even if you don't understand it, if the person, let's say, matters to you because they're a friend or a family member or a spouse or a child or a partner or whatever, like this person is in your life, you have to interact with them. Be curious about what lights them up and seems to bring out that sense of awe, wonder, expansiveness, like, whoa, like why is that so interesting to you? Even if it makes you yawn, right? But something else gets you really excited. And so if we can hold back on the judgment and kind of bump up the curiosity, if you're in that relationship with whoever it is, you have a relationship with them professionally, personally, there's a conversation going on, instead of judging it, and this is a good reminder for me too, especially with my kids' sense of music and fashion. I could go down the rabbit hole here about all those things that I'm like, okay, I need to bring, and we get to bring, our own curiosity for that person that, we're in discussions with about why it is awesome to them. Literally, like, it is awesome to them. So why is that? And how can I learn to appreciate? How can we learn to appreciate? And I think there's also, in terms of the third aspect, right? We have the nature and the beauty, and then the excellence, the skill, the talent, and then we have kind of virtuous or moral goodness, right? That when we appreciate a moral act or a moral behavior or a kind act or a kind word or whatever that is, like that's also an appreciation of beauty and excellence, right? And so how can we bring what I'm sharing here into our own lives? Okay, how can we bring that into our workplaces? How can we bring that into our families, our schools? How can you share this with somebody else, right? That matters to you, and how can you expand your own sense of what is beautiful or what is excellent or what is good, right? To make room for other people's understandings and expressions, right? It's just getting bigger, more vast, more awe-inspiring. So your homework, if you will, your fun work, if you want, is right now, as I wrap this up, like jot down, let's say 1, 2, 3, 10, however many you want, things that you feel fill you with awe. Because when we're having crappy days, or when we're having difficult times, or when we're having challenges, we want to be able to reach into our pockets and remind ourselves how to see the good. How to see the good in all of what's going on in our lives, right? And this series is about recognizing, knowing, and using these character strengths that you do have, and bringing them to the forefront, bringing them to your, like being mindful of them, using them, practicing using them, practice seeing them in others. And the more we get to use these character strengths, the more that leads, because these are like the flowy, I'm saying flow chart. It's definitely not a flow chart, although you can make a flow chart. But these are like the well springs, it's been described. Okay, well springs towards thriving, right? These are pathways to thriving and flourishing. So make your own list of like what really moments in your life, okay, even if it was 20, 30 years ago, where you felt this sense of awe from something you witnessed, from something you accomplished, from something you heard, from something you saw, from something you did. Maybe it was something you were on the receiving end of. There was, a moment in my life, like 13 years ago, where I was the recipient of an act of kindness that was so profound, and it was so profound, and it was so easy, where I met with a friend and I was really upset about something, and they sat down next to me and they didn't say a word, and they just took my hand and sat with me. They just sat with me and let me cry for like 5 minutes, and then we started talking. And it was that act of kindness, which, looking through the lens of this character strength that I'm sharing here, is really an appreciation. Like, I'm using my strength, let's say, of appreciation of beauty, excellence, goodness, to recognize what that was. I mean, I've thought about that many times over. I've just never thought about it using this strength. I never thought about it that, hey, I'm using my strength of appreciation of beauty and excellence, and in this case, kindness, which is a kind of moral goodness, to appreciate what was done for me. So that's just one example. So where in your life have you been, let's say, the beneficiary or recipient of kindness, right? And how can you be that for someone else? There's a lot of strengths in there, right? Love, kindness, gratitude, perspective, social intelligence. We've talked about some of these already. But appreciation of beauty and excellence maybe can also be brought in here, because when you appreciate that kind word, it has been found that that appreciation of virtue, of moral goodness, it does motivate people to go and do their own act of moral goodness. So I'll just share it from there. Thank you again for listening. And I hope that this was helpful for you to take in your day and in your week. And I'll wrap it up by saying, be excellent to each other. From Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Be excellent to each other. And I will see you next time for way number, I guess we're up to 8. All right. Have a good one.